So thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for the invitation to speak, and it's really an honor to be up here with such amazing researchers and scholars from the university. Before I start, I wanted to say thank you to the team who put the event together, so to Kathy and to everybody else. Here we go. Okay. So I'm Sarah Marty. I grew up on a farm in Monticello, Wisconsin, population 1,000 people. I had a lot of music in my life, Swiss culture, libraries, and much feeding of horses and calves. And when I was in 9th grade, I told my parents I wanted to go to UW-Madison, and they said no. It's a big city, it's a dangerous place, we see the news, you can't go to Madison. I worked on them for 4 years, and by the time I was a senior, I was able to apply, and I got in. It was very rare at that time for somebody from a town of 1,000 to go to a university of this size. So when I got here, it was a little bit overwhelming, but I found my people in the first semester in the Integrated Liberal Studies program. It was a phenomenal certificate. Oh, it's okay. It was a phenomenal program, a really wonderful, I'll be good, certificate program, and it taught me about intersections between different topic areas. When I was learning about history of science, I was looking at science and engineering and math and context and culture and society and what was happening in the world at that time. And it really changed the way that I thought about learning, and it changed the way that I think about teaching. I also got into the music education program, thank you, at the School of Music. And I ended up graduating with that degree, taught for many years in the public school systems, and was recruited into the business school. And when they first started talking about the business school, I just thought, what? I'm a music teacher. You want me in the business school? What? And it turns out they had a program, the Bowles Center for Arts Administration, where you learn about how arts and business work together and inform each other. So in my work, I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of students and campus and community members to do some pretty amazing things. I'm just going to share a couple of those with you. The first is His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama has a wonderful relationship with Professor Richie Davidson and the Center for Healthy Minds on campus. And along with a primarily student-led team, we were able to produce 2 major events at the Overture Center in 2013 and 2016 with His Holiness, the Secret Service, the Tibetan Secret Service, the Dane County Sheriff, the Overture Center Security Department, and about 300 other individuals. It was pretty incredible. I also worked on the Overture Center 10th anniversary concert, 12 artistic directors for 12 arts organizations, all given 10 minutes. Just imagine how much fun that was. We had over 400 people on stage for the finale, and this is another project that UW-Madison students were an integral part of making happen behind the scenes. And here's a shot from the UW Varsity Band Spring Concert. I have the great distinguished honor of working with Professor Mike Leckrone every year on this phenomenal concert and event with 300 marching band members, 15 production staff team members, and 200 theater technicians from the Madison area to bring it to life. In addition, we work with public television, which adds a whole nother layer of complexity for our live audience and for those at home who get to see it later on. They seem like sort of disparate events. The Dalai Lama, Mike Leckrone, they're both awesome, but you know, only have fireworks in one of those events. But on the fundamental aspects of production or artistic endeavors or gallery shows have 2 things in common. No matter what you're doing, you always need a business plan on how you're going to do it and how you're going to make it happen. And you use design thinking as an integral part of the development process. We call it the creative process. Design thinking is a nice rebranding effort that's worked out pretty well for some people. So I won't read the chart. You can read the chart, but it's nothing new. It's something that we all do in our fields every day. We start with observation. Who are we? What are we doing? Why does it matter? What's the goal of this team or this project? You have to answer those questions first. What resources do we have on hand? What challenges do we see? So a few years ago, I produced a show called She Loves Me, and the last scene is all about the weather. The last scene, 2 hours in, you just want them to get together, and you know it's going to happen, and you just want to, it's December, it has to snow on stage. How do we make it snow on stage? The lighting designer was in on it. The sound designer, can I create sounds of winter weather and a little bit of winds and breezes? The technical director had to figure out how we could drop something above the actors from the catwalk and have it appear to snow. The costume designer said, well, if I put some more layers, we could try some hats or scarves. People will feel like it's cold. We made it snow inside the Overture Center, right? So weather's very important, even in the arts. You break into teams, you think about what you're gonna do, how you're gonna do it, you're brainstorming, and then you start prototyping. You've got sketches, you've got Pinterest boards. Man, Dropbox and Pinterest have revolutionized the theater industry because you can share everything. You can have Skype meetings, FaceTime meetings, and this whole process of iterating and recalibrating and trying and testing is so much easier because you don't have to do it all in person at the same time. Those in-person meetings are really important, but it gives us much more flexibility in how we get to that point where we're ready to do presentations and make decisions on what we can do, what we want to do artistically, and what we can actually afford to do and have the time to do when we're building it all. I love the quote that from earlier that was, if you're not prepared to be wrong, you'll never come up with anything original. If you think about theater, how many folks have been to American Players Theater? Right? American Players Theater, beautiful, beautiful work, amazing work by the actors, by the people backstage. This summer, they opened their season and their new space with A Midsummer Night's Dream. How many years old is that play? How many tens of thousands of productions of A Midsummer Night's Dream have there been? But every production is special, every production is different, every production is new. So I wanted to share Venn diagrams because a business presentation is not complete without a Venn diagram, and I have two. On the right, we have our design thinking Venn diagram. Market desirability is what do people want, business viability, what's it going to cost and can we afford it, and technological feasibility, can we actually make it happen? And somewhere in that magic middle of design thinking is innovation. The crowd goes wild. On the right is the first Venn diagram I ever encountered in the arts, and it's called fast, cheap, great. And the middle is not likely. Because in reality, often you have to make a decision and you pick two, right? You're picking two. So this is the world we live in the arts and in many sectors, as just sort of something to think about and reflect on. Sorry. So how many folks in here are familiar with Hamilton the musical? So a couple people, yeah. When we think about Hamilton, it's a piece of art that has massive crossover appeal. When's the last time a musical, a Broadway show, ended up on the cover of Rolling Stone? Doesn't happen very often, right? When we think of Hamilton, the first name to come to mind is Lin-Manuel Miranda. He's a genius. He's certifiably a MacArthur Genius Award winner. And he wrote the music, he wrote the book, he wrote the lyrics, he was the star performer. And it's really easy to fall into this trap where you think that show happened overnight because he's brilliant and he did it all. He's Lin-Manuel Miranda. In reality, it started in 2009 as a concept album, the Hamilton mixtape, and it was him, his MacBook Pro, and a little tiny keyboard. And after an entire year, he'd written one song. That's the song that was on the White House Evening of Spoken Word and Poetry. Talks to his friends Tommy Kail, the director, talks to Alex Lacamoire, music director. After 2 years, he's written 2 songs. Not making a lot of progress. They finally say, look, you either do it or don't do it, but we got to get moving. In the next 4 years, they go from a guy with a MacBook and a keyboard to a full-fledged multi-million-dollar empire, right? And it only was possible by bringing more people on team and working collaboratively with costume designers, lighting designers, scenic designers, all these other folks that then worked together to create what we now know as Hamilton. If you get a chance to see it, make sure you listen to it first. And if you get a chance to read the lyrics, do that ahead of time as well. I teach a class on Hamilton, so if you have any questions, see me later. So Hamilton's an idea of the creative process on an epically large scale. I just want to share 2 student projects as I close that show some of the research and scholarship and amazing work and applied learning in the arts that we've had on this campus in the last couple of years. The first is Deja Mason. Deja was a business school major, was in the gospel choir, the concert choir, and she took a class with Professor Richard Davis and also participated in the Black Music Ensemble. When he retired, that ensemble went from being a course for credit to a student organization that was open to anybody and didn't cost students anything to participate. So they're no longer paying tuition. Great idea, makes it a lot more available, but those students that were in the group didn't have a plan. How do we do this? What are auditions? How do we run auditions? Where are we going to go? How do we get a venue? How do we work with the venue? How do we raise money so we can do workshops and bring in speakers and guest teachers? They didn't have a plan. So Deja, in fall 2016 in my Arts Enterprise class, that was her project for the whole semester, was working with her team and the leadership committee for the Black Music Ensemble and putting together what 2016-17 looked like and what years in the future could look like. So when they graduate, that knowledge is passed on to the next group. And then my last student example, because I can hear the little sonar radar going off, is John Van Arsdale, technical director for Kiss Me Kate. Kiss Me Kate was a production by Four Seasons Theater. It reopened the Union Theater after 2 years of renovations. And John had the toughest job of all because we were working on the show and the theater was still being built. We normally would do a tour and get to walk around the stage and walk through the dressing rooms. Our tour was hard hats and holes in the floor. So technical director, he was a graduate student. He used this as his thesis project. And just to give you a quick idea of all of the things that he had to do. As a TD, you're an artist. You have to appreciate the scenic designs, the overall vision of the director, and understand how the set supports storytelling. He's an engineer and a carpenter. Oh, that looks great on the page and it's really pretty, but how am I going to make that happen in a way that we can build it in one space and transport it to another and it's safe for everybody to use? He's a construction supervisor. He had a team of 20 carpenters, scenic painters, and finishers who were working on putting the whole piece together. And he was an interpersonal communications rock star because he's working with his team to do his piece of the puzzle, and he's also working with the director, the designer, the costume designer. He's making sure that everything is usable and functional and on time and on budget. All as a student here at the university and working on a $150,000 production, which may not sound like a lot, but it's pretty big in this theater community. Before I wrap up, I just want to show a couple of the iterations of the scenic design. It was Professor Joseph Varga working with John Van Arsdale. So you see initial sketches, you see initial ground plans. Then we go to a white model, which is used in rehearsals and by the director, and then we have a paint rendering model of what it should look like when it's recognized. We've got students working on painting and building it, and here it is all folded up after they wheeled it down Park Street from Vilas Hall to backstage at the theater to put it together and hang it up. And here's a reminder what it looked like at the end. So pretty incredible work, and that was with the UW Theater and Drama Department and their undergraduate and graduate students. So in closing, a lot of times when we think about the arts, we have this thought of the divine inspiration of the muse, and we think of it only in relation to creativity and blind luck. But the arts involve, in every single aspect, best practices in business. And it's not fair to separate those out and not recognize the work that is done to create a project or a shared experience. Artists innovate constantly. Every single new theater production, the 7,000th production of Midsummer Night's Dream, for instance, right, is a new creative team, it's a new audience, it's a new cast, it's brand new. It's never been done before, the way that you're going to do that. And each performance, every night is very different because the audience is different. And it's live theater. You never know what's going to happen, what's going to get knocked on the floor. In Man of La Mancha, our lead sword belt spontaneously combusted in the middle of Impossible Dream. He had to keep singing. He couldn't break character. His manservant came up, grabbed it, put it in his little messenger bag, and backstage, holy heck broke loose. Everybody was on headset. Where are they coming off? Who's got the gaff tape? How are we going to fix this? All getting ready to fix it, but he stayed in character the whole time. Artists are entrepreneurs who execute plans on razor-thin margins. There isn't a lot of venture capital available in our field. Tight timelines, less than 6 months from idea to fruition. And they share their work with a live audience and get immediate feedback. That's pretty scary, right? It's only possible with a dedication to collaboration, elastic thinking, a willingness to improvise and experiment, business savvy, and bravery. So thank you.